I was working with a nutritionist. Like, she should have been, saying something about it, but no. Basically, you're totally malfunctioning that you're like, okay, this can't be me, this can't be right. This is just getting worse. I shouldn't be in pain. I'm early 20s. Being able to handle conflict, not being able to handle criticism, not being able to like really deal with stress. It is hard because it's like I feel like that's one of those things that's not going to be heard no matter what you say. There were times I would feel like I'm gonna fall over like for no reason. My diet is like whole foods, like
Hmm.
nutrient dense animal foods. Is my face looked different. I physically feel a lot younger. I can see like the deterioration in your face still. Like I can see it. They were like, oh wow. And it turns out like they were basically vegan. Or like if I had to go out and kill a chicken, like I would do that myself.
Hello, everyone. My guest today is Kat. She was vegan for 8 years, followed by a couple of years of post veganism. Kat followed junk vegan, whole food vegan, and carbohydrate, starch based vegan diets. And today we're going to discuss her choices, her path, and what happened with her veganism, and how life has been afterwards. Hi, Kat.
So
So the first question that I have is, what was your personal incentive to participate in the ex vegan survey, and why did you want to do the interview? Why did you want your story heard?
So I wanted to participate in the study because I think it's an important thing to have out there. Just having more, I guess, evidence like from people who have experienced veganism and gone through it and have had, these experiences. I think it's important to like document that and have that. And then for wanting to share my story, like I am fairly young still, and I don't think that anybody young should be dealing with the things that I dealt with. It shouldn't be normalized. I think it's something that needs to be talked about and like having been through it like when I was in my end stages of veganism and kind of questioning and going through it all, like I did find online people sharing their experiences of having gone through it. And I think it is something that helped me a lot. So like I'd love that to be something else that, if somebody needs it, it's there.
Sounds good. Thank you so much that you volunteered to do that. I think
Mhm.
I believe that it's valuable as well because to me it was also great help to see people who are ex vegans reporting their things because there was always a moment of gaslighting, I feel like, because when you're leaving veganism, because the only thing that you know is veganism. So
Yeah.
yeah, being exposed to the other side, some of their experiences was super valuable. I'm grateful for every person who put their story out there. So
Mhm.
but initially, how did veganism come to your life? Who was your
Um,
inspiration?
so I had a friend when I was probably about 15 who she was vegetarian and I don't know, it kind of just made me like think about it. It wasn't like she was pushy about it or anything. It just made me like curious and then, those teenage years you're like you know, I won't say like fully rebelling, but just needing something to like hold on to, and then it was something I could control. It was something like that was my thing. And I from this friend I kind of started like looking online and like, oh, okay, like vegetarian, I kind of want to try that. And then it just turned into veganism like immediately. And I was like, okay, we're gonna do this, like,
Hmm.
that kind of thing.
I see. I saw that you were taking B12 and vitamin D, and then later on some other supplements. But did you do any like specifically nutrition research before switching to vegan diet?
Um, So I did not do that much. Like I don't think at that age it like really concerned me. It wasn't until like much later that it like was even something that like I thought about. I know, from I guess you could say like vegan influencers and stuff, like they're always like, oh, like, B12 is like all you have to worry about. And I was like, okay, I'll do that. And then I was taking vitamin D, I know like definitely later on because like I knew like I at the time wasn't really, optimizing sunlight and everything. And it
Hmm.
just was something that was like, okay, like I feel like I should be doing this, whether I know the reason or not.
Yeah, but then did everything about veganism make sense to you back then? Like when you were making a decision that you want to pursue that path? Or did you have something that felt conflicted about veganism for you?
Um, I mean, at first, no, like I was like full on into it, like fully, like head first, diving into it. And I mean, as the years went on, like, being vegan, like it definitely like, I started questioning and things didn't make sense as much. And, for whatever reason, I still stayed with it. But at first, like I didn't really question.
Mhm. I see. So it was like the bestest, the most bestest thing that you can do
Yeah.
type of thing. Okay.
Yeah.
So one funny thing I found in your survey was that you responded that all of the vegan influencers would eventually annoy you, so you would
Yes.
unfollow them.
Yes.
Can you give me examples? Like what was it?
Um, like it's been so long since I like followed anybody like that. But I know like I would follow these people and then it was like the same things over and over that they would be talking about or ranting about. And I was like, I understand like this is the reason you're doing it, and I understand that like this is bad. And like I was just tired of hearing it over and over. And then it was just like the same things. And I was just like, all right, I'm gonna move on to the next thing. So yeah.
Okay, if any vegans watch us, take notes. I actually have so much to comment on vegan marketing as well. I think I will make a video with like customer review of veganism and how they could market themselves better. Yeah, so you transitioned to a vegan diet from what we call standard American diet. So
Mhm.
did you become like vegan all at once, or did you have some trial and error, some like easing into it, transitioning? Or did you have a period where you were like in between two worlds?
It was sort of all at once. Like at first my intention was, okay, I'm gonna go vegetarian for a while and like do that. And then like it was kind of like an overnight thing. I was like, nope, I'm vegan.
I see. Okay, how did it feel like after the switch? Did you have like honeymoon period when suddenly you are like, oh my God, it feels so good. Like, oh, I'm gonna stay vegan forever. I don't know why. No, why
I
I
did not.
no?
No, for me, kind of, and I know like some of your questions later are gonna kind of touch on it, but like kind of
Uh-huh.
going through like an eating disorder of sorts, like kind of going through that, it's like it didn't really feel that much different for me. It was just something that I was like, all right, I'm doing this now. It wasn't like I felt amazing or anything, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
I see. All right. So was it like your first choice of vegan diet out of everything you listed? What was it like, junk whole or starchivore? The one that you
Definitely
start.
more Whole Foods at first, is what I definitely try to aim for.
Mm-hmm. You were 15 when you went vegan.
Mhm.
What did your family say about it?
I think as many things at that age, I gave my mom a heart attack. She's like, "Why are you doing this?" Like kind of thing. But she was like pretty, supportive of it, but just like, I could see that she was like struggling with it and like,
Mm-hmm.
like I think my like immediate family like accepted it, but like, like the rest of the family were more like judgmental about it. But like and there were definitely challenges and ups and downs with all of that, but
Mm-hmm. I see.
they just
But
accepted it over time.
but there were no like sanctions, right? Like you are not, or like if you want to go vegan, go live on your own type of thing. No, nothing like
No,
that.
no, it was just like, little arguments here and there and like, why do you have to be so difficult and like, little things like that. So,
Were you like, were you that person at the table who would be like, your meat stinks like corpses, or well, not nothing like that?
nothing like that extreme. Like I know like the probably the first 6 months of being vegan, like I was more like headstrong about like I'm doing the right thing and like this other stuff is wrong. But like after that, it was like I didn't really feel like arguing. I was like, I just want to do my thing and like not argue with you. I'll let you do your thing if you let me do my thing, basically.
Matured.
Um, and then I had, yeah, and I had one uncle at the time who was a vegetarian.
Mm,
So that was like kind of helpful that I wasn't like the only one. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, it's an interesting family dynamic. Yeah, that's cool. I mean, that's actually on the one hand, it's really nice that you had some support because when you are vegan, that's what you want. And so, I
Yeah.
mean, on the one hand, yeah, it's really great to have some support, I guess. So you followed total three types of vegan diets. And you
Not
said that
very
you
strictly, but yes.
kind of, yeah, but like you started with whole food, but then what inspired you to pursue like other varieties, junk, and I guess is it accurate to call it starchivore diet?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I know like probably like I know when I was still eating more like junk stuff, like I was still making an effort to like make
Mm-hmm.
fresh things. It wasn't like all like processed junk. But I know like part of that was like the convenience of it and the fact that
Yeah,
I
of
was
course.
just exhausted like
Mm-hmm.
making things like all the time. So like that was partially convenience and time. And then like going to more like starch based, like I didn't know that was like a term until like the survey. But like I was like, okay, that was probably best describe like what I was nearing the end of veganism because the only things that would like I guess react well for me, like my stomach was like starchy things.
Mm-hmm.
Like my digestion was so like out of whack that that was the only thing that I could eat without like my stomach like just basically like rejecting it or feeling weird and like yeah, so like it was not great nearing the end, but
I
yeah.
see. Okay.
Yeah.
What were the pros and cons of two approaches that you took, like whole food plus no, I mean some occasional junk, and
Mhm.
versus starchivore? Like, can you name like what were the plus and minus sides of those?
Um I mean Whole Foods definitely takes more work, I feel like, if you're like making a whole meal with that. It's just I felt like more prep, you know? Um, I don't know. I mean, it's definitely like cleaner, like you're not getting as many like crappy oils and things like that in it. Um, but like I guess the junk food is like the more convenient and like you can go out and eat more places because there are more options like that now.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess that's my like pros and cons with it.
Yeah. When you were on starchy diet, then you said that it was kind of soothing for your digestion, but did you feel overall like fulfilled, or were there any cons on starchy diet?
It was out of kind of desperation for me that I
Mm-hmm.
did it.
I
So
see.
like, it was like kind of like a last resort of like for me. So I don't know if I can really say like if there were cons to it because it was the only thing that was sort of helping, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, you probably weren't thinking in that direction altogether
No.
at that point. Yeah, I saw that you were not diagnosed with any nutritional deficiencies as a vegan, but
Mhm.
you, at what some point, specify when, started taking multivitamin. Why
Mhm.
did you start taking vitamins, like self-prescribed basically vitamins, and did they help you?
So throughout veganism, I did get blood work done, but nothing specifically was a deficiency.
Mm-hmm.
I know at one point, I had blood work done and like it was like I had like some like B like vitamin in there that would or like that was kind of low. And it wasn't like my doctor said anything about it, but it was on kind of a low end. And at the time, this was kind of nearing the end of veganism for me. You know, I noticed my digestion and everything like was not great and like I was struggling with some stuff and like I did work with a nutritionist for a short period of time and she was the one that was like okay we'll try like multivitamin C like if this helps you or anything and I don't know that it really made a difference but also like at the time like I had no concept of like how things absorb and like
Mm-hmm.
things that are blocking absorption and like all of that. Like I have a lot more understanding of like some things now, but at the time it's not like it was even like talked about, which is kind of weird. I was working with a nutritionist, like she should have been, saying something about it, but no. So yeah, it was kind of nearing the end when I was like kind of desperate to try to figure out what's going on.
Now I'm curious about the nutritionist all of a sudden. What was it specifically vegan nutritionist or general practice?
Mm-mm.
No?
Just general. Yeah. I
They
mean,
just
she was personally, I know she was vegetarian, but yeah.
I see. That's interesting. Like I always I always have to keep this in mind that to me it's the main law of nutritional science to try to get all nutrition from food.
Yeah.
So to
Yeah.
me it's very puzzling to hear that a nutritionist prescribes a pill, like some combination pill basically. That's bizarre to me to hear. I don't know. But yeah,
Yeah.
I'll, I'll, I'll keep the further discourse to myself at this point. Then, after how many years on a vegan diet did you start having problems? And what made you understand that it was because of your diet that you were that you were experiencing those?
Mhm. I mean, I can say looking back, like there were problems right from the beginning, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, it's not something I ever really associated with food. It was just, okay, you're going through your teenage years and your hormones are all over the place and like all of this. So it's not something I ever really would have considered and correlated with food. So I can say like there were issues like right in the beginning. But it wasn't until like years and years later that I was like even considering that it could be anything related to diet. It wasn't until like basically you're totally malfunctioning that you're like, okay, this can't be me. This can't be right. This is just getting worse, you know?
Uh-huh. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah, so but you had like 4 months of period between you realizing that there likely is a problem with your diet and then actually
Mhm.
quitting veganism. What was happening during those 4 months? What was thought process?
So I know like one of the things that really made me start like questioning and really like kind of having the desire to looking into like something else like nutritionally. Um at the time like I was there were some podcasts that I was listening to and like they were kind of discussing like seed oils and things like that and I was like, "Oh man, okay, there's a lot of that kind of stuff in the food that I'm eating and like I probably don't want to be doing that." But then I was having this conflict of okay, like I would be open to eating butter, but I want to buy it locally if possible. And then I was like kind of in this stuck place of like, where do I even get this? And like, and all of that. And then also like from that podcast where they were talking about like seed oils and stuff, like one of the hosts, she was vegan for a very long time and she kind of shared her journey. And, I listened to it, but I wasn't fully like, ready to hear it all. But it was like it kind of like planted that seed of like questioning for me of like, oh, okay, like maybe I'm not totally crazy with everything that's going on. So that was like, I would say like um, I remember that was like right before Christmas one year, and then, went through Christmas and everything, and then January, I was still like kind of in that like questioning state, and then I was dating a guy at the time, and he was vegetarian. Like when we started going out, he was vegetarian, and then we like one of our like first conversations, we were talking about like food and ethics and things like that, and I was like, we were both questioning. Like we were
Mhm.
both questioning it. And it was one of those things that as that went on, he was like, "Hey, do you want to try some eggs? Hey, do you want to try some milk?" And it was a very like slow thing for me to like do, but I was like, "Okay, I think I do," you know. Um so yeah, that like it was a few months of like questioning there, and then it was another few months before I actually did eat meat.
I see.
Yeah.
All right, we'll discuss the timeline of your how you adopted the omnivorism. You said that, yeah, that you should have quit earlier your veganism. Now, if you look back, what was the point, the critical point, do you think, during your veganism, where you should have stopped? Like, definitely or definitively, you should have stopped. Because, of course, like it's easy to say that I should have started being vegan,
Hmm.
but there's always some point where I think there is always a point where there's some threshold that um, it kind of starts forming into an avalanche of different events that just
Hmm.
to a whole bunch of problems. Did you have do you think that you had such moment throughout your journey? Now again, looking back.
Like an avalanche that like led
Yeah,
to like a downhill.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I could say like, I like now I would have stopped like right like within the first year.
Mm-hmm.
But that's in retrospect. But with like an avalanche of things, like definitely probably the beginning of like year 7 for me was like that like downhill for me. Like that was like the okay, something is clearly wrong, but I don't know what.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, even before then, I could say, oh, okay, like things were going wrong and I should have realized it. But it was probably that 7 year that I was like, all right, like it's going downhill, like completely from here.
I see.
So,
And so yeah, but now you say that 1 year was enough for you to probably appreciate how veganism like affects your body and make
yeah,
conclusions and move on type of thing. Okay.
yeah.
So okay, got it. Then what were the scariest symptoms that you got to experience due to veganism?
Mm. Um, I would say like probably the scariest thing is like nearing like in within the last year, it was like just my brain malfunctioning.
Hmm.
Of like not being able to handle conflict, not being able to handle criticism, not being able to like really deal with stress. Like I was anxious like all the time kind of thing. And um as well as that, it was like physical like pain for me, And
Mm-hmm.
it's like I shouldn't be in pain. I'm early 20s, you know.
Yeah,
So like between those two things, it's like those were definitely like it's definitely scary.
relatable. Yeah, for sure. And so I have this question that can infuriate people if they actually imagine that happening in real life. But imagine a vegan comes to you and tells you after you tell this story, a vegan comes and tells that they were vegan for 20 plus years and they are thriving. They're the healthiest, the happiest they could ever imagine being. Vegan diet works perfectly. It's all your fault. You messed up. You did not research nutrition well. It's not, you should not blame the veganism. You should blame yourself for all of your mistakes. You should have tried these and these and these and these concoctions, these and these supplements, going to a dietitian, figuring things out with yourself instead of resorting to animal cruelty. Or there's no justification for animal cruelty, I guess. So, what would be your response for that?
It is hard because it's like I feel like that's one of those things that's not going to be heard no matter what you say. Um, I mean, I would probably say something like, I'm really glad that it's worked for you for 20 plus years, but I was only able to do it for 8 years because I physically was not able to, and the quality of my life is worth changing what I'm eating. And I tried everything I could, everything I could to like possibly stay with it, and nothing was helping me. And like,
Mm.
like it wasn't worth suffering in that way, any longer.
And run. You say that and run.
Just run.
Yeah. Okay. So the day you left veganism, do you remember it? Like, what was the sequence of events? Like, because it's a pretty emotional day, I would imagine, for most people. Like, you woke up with a decision, or you made a decision throughout the course of the day. You went to
Mhm.
the grocery store or to the restaurant. You picked something up. You're facing that product, that animal food. You take
Mhm.
the first bite. Like, what was it? What was that experience for you like?
Um, so for me, it wasn't like I went to the grocery store and like went to try something because at the time when I was dating this guy, it was like he was like, "Here, try some eggs." And I was like, "Okay, I'm kind of scared." And then he was like, "Do you want to try some milk?" And I was like, "Okay, I'll have like a little bit," but I was like so afraid that it was gonna like hurt my stomach, kind of thing. And that was like a very slow month or two that it was like, okay, I'm like kind of slowly starting to eat this stuff. Um, and like I was definitely afraid that it was like my body wasn't gonna accept it, and I think a lot of people have had that like feeling.
Uh-huh.
Um, yeah, and then like it wasn't for a while like that I actually had meat. It was and then like I remember that day it was like, all right, I'm ready, I'll try it, and like I felt good about like eating it, but I was still like nervous and like not sure.
Uh-huh.
And then it like but that wasn't me actively going out and buying it. I remember when I actively went out and like bought like, I bought chicken and I was like, okay, like I remember sitting like contemplating like a good few hours of like, am I gonna do this? Am I really gonna do this? So yeah, it took a lot to be able to like push myself to go like actively do it myself, you know?
Uh-huh. I see.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you got to ease into it because
Yeah.
I don't know. I had such an appetite for animal foods. I remember I announced that the experiment that are you curious to see raw vegan trying eggs and fish for a month? And then 1 week later, I'm like, give me this chicken, lamb.
Yeah.
I want stew. I want animal fat. Like,
Well, after I accepted, like, okay, this is what I'm doing, then it was like I was ravenous for it,
I
like I
see.
needed it.
hmm
Yeah.
Yeah. How as a result, by the how did your body respond to that? Because you're a long-term vegan, so
Hmm.
safe to assume that your body kind of adapted, I guess, to not
Yeah.
receive.
Yeah. Since it was like a very slow process, like I still felt like in the first few months, since it was like only like like small amounts that I was taking in, like I still feel like in that period, like I was still like kind of malfunctioning in my brain because it's like my body's like trying to like turn on and like it's not like quite there yet. So it's like power's on, then power's like kind of like sputtering or whatever. So it took time. And then as soon as like I was regularly doing that, it was like, oh, I feel really good. I feel more grounded in my body. I feel, like my brain is working a little better. I feel like I can focus a little better, like little things like that I started to notice.
I see. What was the timeline of those improvements?
Um, I mean, it was pretty like as soon as I started, like it was like a regular thing. It was like almost like immediately like you started to like slowly notice the improvements. And then as soon as I was like fully like accepting like okay, this is what I'm doing, this is what I'm eating, then it was like okay, like we're on, we're going, kind of
hmm
thing.
I see. Was there anything that's like some revelation moment? Because to me, it was day 17, 18, 19. 17, I started
Hmm.
feeling changes in my body, like super strongly, but I did not trust them. I was like, no, it's hallucination. Let's wait. Day
Hmm.
18, I'm like, I still feel it. Okay. Day 19, I'm like, okay, it's certain that it's happening. So I was able to like record a video about it just for my diary of recovery. And did you have anything like that where you're like, oh my God, it's working. It's working. Something magical is happening. Did you have any moment like that? And in what area of well-being?
Like since it was so like slow of a process for me, like I can't say there was like a specific day that I noticed that, but I will say probably maybe a month or so after like going back to eating animal products, like I noticed I was like, all right, like I feel so much more grounded in my body. And then like also like with that, like I was like curious. I was like, okay, like did I gain weight? Like what happened? Like I gained 10 pounds, but it wasn't fat. It was literally I'm pretty sure my bone density and like everything. Like I was like, oh my God, I feel like so much more grounded. I don't feel like I'm gonna fall over, like
Uh-huh.
there were times I would feel like I'm gonna fall over like for no reason, like just so weak. But it was probably then that I was like, okay, like I can stand on my own 2 feet and not feel like I'm falling over.
It's actually quite sounds quite similar. And that's what I felt on day 19 that I
Yeah.
felt like my joints were loose almost. Like it felt like
Yes.
I had to exert so much power to stay upright. And
Yeah.
and that's what changed first that I felt like, oh my God, I have structural support now. And it happened
Hmm.
surprisingly quickly. Are there, by the way, any like vegan foods that you or plant foods that you ditched from your diet eventually?
Mm. I feel like there's a lot of stuff I won't eat now. Like I basically have eliminated grains from my diet.
hmm
So like no wheat, like very little rice or like anything like that that I'll like occasionally have. Um, and then like I'm not saying like I've completely ditched it, but like I very, very rarely will have beans. I very, very rarely will have nuts, like that kind of thing.
hmm
I guess I can say I probably have ditched quinoa completely and then lentils.
uh-huh.
Like no, no thanks. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, it's yeah, ditching is yeah, is hard word, but I
Yeah.
understand that yeah, that you something that you relied on before. You can no longer like imagine eating it every day. Oh my god, no.
Yeah, no.
Because you have better substitutes kind of. So I don't know if you will be comfortable talking about it, but I want to explore a little bit the subject of ED because I know that there is a huge notion that veganism attracts people with EDs, but then what we see is that I think that veganism is very conducive of development of an ED as well because it implies overconsumption of food. You eat large volumes. Then a lot of people actually report that they are never satiated, so they tend to overeat because they try to catch up on that feeling. They want to finally feel satisfied with food. So there is a lot that can happen. Plus, also again, you're in paradigm of restriction. So for example, you crave some animal food, you cannot satisfy it naturally. So you have to like go out of your way to do some tricks and tweaks. So that's why I think brings veganism into the category of like ED risky things to do. But you
Mhm.
had history of ED before you switched to veganism, and according to the survey, you have been in remission since pretty much early stages of veganism.
Mhm.
So, did following a vegan diet help you manage the ED?
I would say like as I went on with it, yes. It but it's still like there was definitely still like lingering things and like coming out of it, it's like I can see that it like kind of just masked some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Like yeah, that was like a big realization, like kind of leaving it of like, okay, it was just masking like a lot of the like an eating disorder, like through like early years for it for me. And then like through it, I feel like there was such a desire that I had of like, I want to take care of myself. I want to heal my body. Like, I want to do this, but nothing was ever like helping, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So it was like I had this like huge desire for it and like this intention to heal myself, but nothing was actually like helping that through
I see.
veganism.
I see. Okay. Something, yes. I'm familiar with that feeling, I think. Now, actually, coming off vegan diet, um, how are your relationships with food now? And do you think that your current diet is promoting like better healing from an ED? And how did your relationships basically with food and your body change after you came off veganism?
hmm Um, I definitely feel like my relationship with food has improved a lot. Like not being vegan. Like like I can say like there were times like in the end that it's like you're almost afraid to eat when you're vegan because like something is gonna like hurt my body or affect me or like whatever. And then there's plenty of food that you're like demonizing. You're like, this is wrong. Like I can't eat this because X, Y, or Z reasons. So like it was like one of those things of like food was like the enemy, like during that period. Like in a way, like yeah, there were things I could eat, but it wasn't like I should eat it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like it definitely improved because it's like I don't have to be like afraid of like eating and like I like genuinely am like I want to like nourish my body and feed myself. So now like my diet is like whole foods, like
Mm-hmm.
nutrient dense animal foods is what I'm what I'm eating, and it's like I don't have guilt about that. Like I feel so much better eating those things, and like I can say like actually having like my body is more dense and like it feels good, you know?
Uh-huh. I feel like
So,
there's more pleasant and wholesome feedback that you get from food when you eat animal foods.
yes.
So when you're vegan, like I remember getting a lot of conceptual pleasure because we all know from all the vegan MDs, from all the vegan influencers, how healthful and good this diet is. So you eat it because you know that it's very good for you, but then you're like, for example, never fully satisfied, or you have some bloating, or have some symptoms, some side effects that you feel. But it's like long-term investment that you are undertaking every day. So it becomes a service to your body and your mind. but then you still feel like your body's slowly getting destroyed. And so when you eat
Hmm.
animal foods, you start feeling fully satisfied with like smaller portions, I feel like, because you get
Yeah.
all nutrition in concentrated form. And then it also kind of soothes your mind. It frees you to do other stuff in life than just standing and cooking or thinking about what to eat and how to help yourself, stuff like that. So it just kind of harmonizes, I think, naturally harmonizes relationships with food just because it fulfills this normal feedback that you feel
Hmm.
when you eat.
Definitely.
Now, the following question. So, you were vegan partially for health. And as we all know, animal products are evil. They are very bad for health. Fish has parasites, heavy metals, and plastic. Meat contains antibiotics, hormones, internal growth hormone, and most of all, cholesterol and saturated fat and whatnot. Then, dairy contains pus, antibiotics, hormones, lactose, after all. So, a lot of stuff. How did you come to agreement with eating animal foods from the perspective of their health effects? What helped you to change your perspective on them?
So I don't know that I carried those beliefs for very long into veganism. I actually like, and maybe I'm not a true vegan because of this, or wasn't. But I like had like I know later on definitely I had this like kind of belief that I'm like I don't necessarily have a problem with eating animal foods. I have a problem with where things come from and how they're processed.
Mm-hmm.
Was like a huge belief of mine like through it. And so nearing like like the end of veganism like it wasn't something that I was really concerned about like going into it because I'm like I know I need this. It wasn't like I was like fearful in that way. I was just afraid that like since it had been so long, my body wouldn't accept it.
Mm-hmm. I see. Makes sense. And then later, I don't know, because when you start cranking up the consumption of cholesterol, saturated fat, did you have any further thoughts about that, or are you at peace with that aspect?
I'm at peace with it because like I know physically I need it.
Okay. Alrighty. The next question is, you were 22 when you quit veganism, right?
Hmm.
You reported that you were losing collagen.
Hmm.
Like, to me, it's like hard to imagine because it sounds like you were just a baby basically, and you were
Yeah.
already experiencing that. Like, did you like turn into that notorious young old vegan person? Like, how did you witness that? Like, what?
Yeah. I don't think it was something I like realized was really happening, but now looking at pictures, it's like you can see it.
I see.
Like you can like my face looked different. It
Mm-hmm.
like and it wasn't like, okay, I have wrinkles or I'm like really aging like super fast or anything, but it was like my face was less full. Like my like when I smiled, like my like mouth looked thinner. Like it's like little things like that it's like, okay, like what's different? And then like also like joint pain, things like that. It's like I shouldn't be dealing with this at 22 years old, you
Mm-hmm.
know? And it was, before that started.
Yeah, it definitely gives you a preview of your 90s when you're vegan for some
Yeah, well,
extended
if
period
I've
of time.
talked to people about it and they're like, "Oh my God, that sounds like an old person." I'm like, "Tell me about it." You
Uh,
know?
yeah. That's yeah. Actually, question: can you notice a vegan in a crowd? Can you tell that a
Mm,
person is vegan?
yeah, I would say so. I think so.
Okay, because yeah, recently I was like, say no more because I met person recently, and I'm like, you don't need to tell me that you are vegan. You don't.
Yeah.
You're like person who came to Earth from moon because supposed to be suntanned but pale. I don't know how it works. Even like people with
Mhm.
brown skin, they have paleness, and people who have suntan, they all also look pale. And I can't explain that. And there is certain thing with the eyes that just like shows. I don't know how to explain
Yeah,
it because
absolutely.
like
I don't
if you
even know how to describe it, but like
yeah,
you can see it.
yeah. I don't know what it is. It's like complex of tiny little things. They're so
Yeah.
small, but they change so much.
Hmm.
It's crazy. Yeah, so do you think, by the way, that you are now biologically younger than you were at 22?
I think so. I physically feel a lot younger. I feel so much, I have more energy. Like there's so many things like that. I'm not in pain. Like, I'm
Hmm.
not fatigued all the time. Like, there's a lot of things. So yes,
Cool, I'm very happy about it.
me too.
So, so after quitting veganism, you went animal based. What motivated your choice to like go pretty much all the way to the opposite side of spectrum?
Mhm. Um, like noticing physically that it made a difference in how I felt and knowing that I need what's in that. Like after, like kind of learning about like a little bit more about like, okay, like what nutrients is in the animal products like that and like what do I need right now to like actually rebuild my body and like just acknowledging that and like fully feeling the difference is the motivation for that.
Mm-hmm. I see. But like with those foods that you mentioned, like grains, legumes, certain things
Hmm.
like that, did
Hmm.
you ditch them or do you reduce their consumption significantly all at
Hmm.
once? Or did you just like gradually started feeling like I don't need this, I feel much better without this?
Yeah. Um, yeah, it was sort of gradual at first because I know like there were times like, still like early on me like eating animal products that I was like, okay, like I got like lentil soup and then realized, okay, I don't really feel good eating that now, and like certain things like that. So it was kind of a gradual process of like, okay, like I don't need that. And then there has been there was some like books that I had like read. There was have you heard of Kate Deering? Um, she has like a book on like how to heal your metabolism, and that's one that like I was like reading, and like she, definitely cuts back on like grains and things like that. And like
Mm-hmm.
she's got like, like the nutritional like reasons like not to like consume those things. So like that was another thing that was like kind of confirming of like what was going on for me. That book was pretty helpful for me, like kind of like at first, like getting back on track with everything.
I see. That's nice. Yeah, because that I relate to it so much because I noticed too, like raw vegan diet for me was minus grains. Then I came off raw vegan diet, started eating animal products. Then I tried introducing some grains, and this is
Yeah.
this is me eating grains. Whenever you see me with that, yeah, that's when I.
Oh yeah, I like, literally was thinking that. I was like, I had cut like wheat out completely, and I was like, oh my God, I'm not getting cystic acne like I used to. Like little things like that. And I was like, okay, that makes a huge difference.
Yeah, for me, the problem is that I can't eat just pure butter. So I literally, a couple of weeks ago, I just terribly started craving a certain type of pastry. It's
Hmm.
literally sour cream, butter, and flour, and there's a ton of
Mm.
butter in it. And I was
Hmm.
like, I don't want any bread. I don't want anything out of wheat. I want specifically that pastry. And
Yeah.
it turns out to be flaky. So just started eating that until I got satisfied. But
Hmm.
I just wanted that specific buttery thing, but I can't eat pure butter. So I'm like, I'm struggling right now trying to find a way to eat butter because I apparently crave it for whatever reason. But we did
Yeah.
beautified me a little bit. So
It happens.
yeah. Is there anything you miss from your vegan days? Can be anything physical, psychological, aesthetical, spiritual, whatever,
I
social.
don't know that I really miss anything, but I will say like in those like end years, like I did feel like there was more like I don't know, desire for spirituality like in that. And that's something I have actually like noticed in other like vegans online over time. It's like there's like a weird like spiritual draw and like things like that. I'm like, I don't necessarily miss it, but like I like it was something that was there that I don't
Hmm.
have as much now, you
I
know?
see. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's, um, I think it is, some belonging to some, I don't know, something magical, something that gives you some, I don't know, different outlook. Yeah, it's captivating for sure because veganism is also bright, colorful, And it's like non-violence, beautiful world. So they do sell you the idea of some super beautiful world without any violence, with everything being just blissful, turning Earth into paradise, Eden, Garden of Eden stuff. Beautiful
Hmm.
idea, I should say. I mean,
Yeah.
too idealistic to be true, though. But can you rate your vegan diet? Do you think there is anything you could have done better? And do you in general think that there is such thing as good, proper vegan diet?
Um, that's hard. I don't, I, from the scheme of, or from a vegan perspective, I probably could have done all of them better. I
Hmm.
probably could have, but, I don't think at this point because I did everything like I could. Like I did everything I could and still ultimately failed.
Hmm.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't think that there's like really a right way to do it because somebody's always going to tell you did it wrong.
Oh yeah. I don't know if you saw my video. It was literally the comments that were 180%, 180 degrees opposite that were under one single video. They
Oh
were
man.
literally when I quit raw veganism, there were people like, "Ah, you were too extreme diet. You should have eaten like this and that." And then there were people who were like, "Oh, it was just you needed to increase fraction of fruits and go fruitarian instead because this raw vegan diet it sucks." Then there were people who are like, "Salt is the worst thing you can eat. It dehydrates, just makes you feel worse." And then some person literally writes that when I started introducing Himalayan salt, my life just improved drastically on vegan diet. Now vegan diet is the best thing that works for me perfectly. And then there's so many funny things. I don't remember everything, but there's so much advice. I just want to summarize it all and be like, guys, just gather somewhere and figure it out. Please for yourself.
Yeah, yeah.
What is that normal, proper vegan diet that does not exist? You're all dancing with a tambourine trying to figure it out.
Yeah, nobody can agree on it, like ever.
And it's just a matter of time when you need to start doing all of this shamanism to try figuring it out.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. Actually, can you describe a person who you think would be more or less successful on a vegan diet long term? I want to know their sex/gender, their age, pregnancy status, probably social status or economic placement, then climate they live in, and when they started being vegan. So, if we were to
Mm.
design such person.
Oh, that's hard. Um, Yeah, I feel like it would have to be somebody who had already like kind of started with like really, really good genetics and a good store of minerals and like everything. Like they physically are like top shape human.
Hmm.
Like that has not been pregnant or anything. Like I it seems like women tend to stay vegan longer, so probably a woman. Um, you know, I don't know, like it's really hard to say like I don't because you would see like the depletion of their health like you would see it going down over time. But for anybody to stay like long term like super long term, I feel like you have to have a really good genetic makeup to like start with.
I see.
Yeah.
I don't know if you noticed the trend if people who were on like more like meat heavy diets, maybe with excess weight, they I think tend to stay a vegan longer actually.
I could see
That's my
that.
impression because
Yeah.
that's people who are like who tried all of the animal heavy like keto diet for example, and then when they failed for example to lose weight on keto diet, then they go vegan, they're like wow vegan diet is the best, and then they stay on
Yeah.
it long term. I think I'm under impression that that has something to do with the two like previous experiences because like I went vegan from largely plant-based. I mean, I ate fish and chicken, but didn't eat
Yeah.
red meat for several years at that point.
Hmm.
To the extent I was like I wasn't eating enough animal food, so I was actually supplementing with B12 before I went raw vegan.
Hmm.
And I had the same outcomes as you described, but after 2.5 probably years they started, 2.5, 3 years.
Yeah.
Because I was already like kind of depleted a little bit before I
Yeah.
switched. So
Yeah.
alrighty. Now, in the survey, you responded that you felt guilt, remorse, fear before when you were basically considering quitting veganism.
Hmm.
Why is that? Why did you have those emotions? What was causing that? Who was the judge?
Yeah, so I kind of felt like I felt fear because it's like, again, I don't know if my body's going to respond to this well. Like it's different, like, am I actually doing this kind of thing? Like I'm making like a big change, like after something like you've been so committed to for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And then the like guilt kind of came from realizing I've been like hurting myself for a long time and like not really like even though I had like good intentions with it, like that was that realization of, oh my God, like I've been destroying myself,
Mm-hmm.
like I've been like putting myself through like all of the suffering,
Uh,
like you're not realizing it. So it was like kind of like that combination of like fear of like, yes, I need to do this, but then also realizing like I've destroyed myself.
yeah, that's very hard. That's very hard.
Yeah.
But then, yeah, I mean, you had successful recovery, which I'm very, 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 very happy for you about.
Yeah. I still feel like
Um,
I'm recovering in some ways, but
yeah, I don't know when it ends.
I don't
when
know.
when you feel like this is it, this is my optimum now. Yeah,
Yeah.
because you don't know otherwise. I mean, it would be fun to have like twin sibling, to be honest, to go through all of those experiments
Yeah, right.
to compare. How did your view on veganism change after all of your experiences and like emotional things, and after you started eating meat?
Hmm.
What do you think about veganism now? How it compares to what you feel, what with what you felt before you switched?
Mm. Um, my feelings towards veganism now is that like I don't believe that it's optimal for human health. Like, it's not something I would really want anybody to put themselves through,
Mm-hmm.
if it even compared to the experience that I had. That's my feeling towards that. Yeah. What was the other part of that question?
The other part of how does it compare to before, like
Mm.
when you were charmed by the idea of going vegan? Like,
Um,
what was it back then for you? What significance did it have?
see, it's so hard because I don't really remember
It
like
makes sense. Mm-hmm.
too much of how I felt before going vegan, you know? Like it was such a time in my life that it's like that whole period like seems kind of like a blur to me, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. All right. So now then, however, we touched up on the on it being an optimal for human health, but you went vegan not just for health, you went vegan for animal and environment.
mhm,
So how did you justify your new approach in terms of in terms of environment and animal rights? And again,
mhm.
in general, like how much of it was how much of worrying about animal rights and environment was in your vegan journey?
So so this is just like in the time that I was vegan.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, I was never like, very like I was never like activist or anything. And like, the environment, yes, it's something like I thought about and I like, believed that veganism was like better for the environment, but it wasn't something that was like I actively was like thinking about too much.
Mm-hmm.
It was again like more of the like belief of like I don't want to like harm another like creature if I don't have to kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
So that was like I think that was like probably the main motive for me, like during that time.
I see. And now, I mean, I guess, are you just at peace, or did you have moments of like, oh my God, I'm now killing animals? I am, I don't know, either negatively contributing to environment, or I learned something that about animal farming that
Hmm.
challenged my previous beliefs.
Hmm.
How did you come to peace with it?
Um, like for me, a big thing, and like I've already mentioned, like just kind of having an idea of like where your food is coming from,
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, knowing that like you're not like buying the cheapest thing out there, like, like the terrible factory farms and all of that. So like when I like if I'm able to, like I'm buying like locally from like local farmers and stuff and like trying to make a difference in that way because that is supporting like people locally as well. And that stuff is typically a lot better quality than what you can just go get at the grocery store. So like that's for me, that's like part of what's helped me like with that of like knowing where things are coming from.
I see. Yeah, good. I mean, it would feel. I'm so like envious to people that do this because I myself never put an effort into actually shopping locally. I shop from
It's
people
hard.
who are regenerative, but they're brands who are found at the stores.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would love to. I would actually love to do that locally. I hear it. Everybody I talk to, they're like, "Yeah, I shop locally," and I'm like,
I don't always, but I try my best.
I need to put an effort because it would. It I've imagined it would be such a wholesome experience.
Hmm.
It's like, mm, because I had experience like that growing up. I would go somewhere and to the countryside, and they would sell their produce, their animals, eggs and stuff. It was just such a beautiful practice. I love it. There's
Yeah,
so much soul when it's like act of giving, and
absolutely.
it's much more personal. And yeah, you see where your food is coming from.
Hmm.
You see the full circle. Now, do you feel like veganism is becoming a global agenda?
Yeah.
What are your feelings about it?
I I just see like everywhere. It's like a trendy thing and it's something that companies can charge more for.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I see because it was always one of those things of, all right, I go out go out to a restaurant or whatever, and then all right, the vegan option is like $5 more. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
what? Why? You know? Shouldn't this be more sustainable even price-wise? Like.
Uh-huh. Yeah, it's strangely elitist, but you know it's fun. You just made me think about something. I actually growing up, we had a moment like my parents were like divorcing, going through all stuff. We had the
Hmm.
moment of actually barely having any money to afford food, and I was going to the state kindergarten. So state kindergartens they feed children. You don't pay, parents don't pay like for that. It's like comes from out of taxpayer money. But um, we had a store in our like in the building where we lived, and they sold soy products that are alternative, like a cheaper alternative to animal products. And I remember growing up eating that like soy extrusions
Hmm.
pretty frequently as a replacement for meat that was like cheaper alternative. And
Hmm.
now you go to the store and you're like, oh my God, soy products are apparently some delicacy now. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
All those substitutes. I mean, if you go like more high quality animal products, they'll also go get more expensive,
Oh, they are.
but you still can find something that's just a humble product without any like investments in like some fancy packaging or branding or anything like that. Where you pay for quality, not for the concept type of thing.
Mm.
Do you think that this trend is long lived or do you think it will die out? Like what's your prognosis and do you think that it's gonna be some problem for people who don't want to become vegans?
Um, I hope it will die out. Like, I don't know. It's hard to say. I mean, I can say like from what I've noticed online, like there is uh it is kind of trendy to be like eating more animal based and stuff right now. So like we'll
Uh-huh.
see how this all plays out.
Yeah. Yeah, in general, dietary trends are such a fun thing. I don't know.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
looking at it. I also have a lot to say, but probably will skip. Yeah, so you responded that you now argue with vegans online. What do
Not
you
too
usually,
often.
what usually, okay, not too often, but when you do, I guess you get strongly triggered. What are those things that trigger you the most?
Yeah. So this does not happen very I don't intentionally go and argue with people, but I find this really hilarious that this happened. For a little bit, I was on a dating app and like I started talking to this person and they asked me like, what's one thing that you can't live without? I responded and told them animal derived products.
Okay.
And like they were like, "Oh wow." And it turns out like they were basically vegan. And it's funny too because like thinking about it, I was like when I was looking at their picture, I was like they kind of look vegan. And it was like, it was like this whole like discussion about it and like, they were asking me like, like why you're not vegan anymore and like all this and like, I told them my experience and I was like, like some people can do it for a long time, but eventually like, pretty much everybody I've talked to like has had like an experience of like falling apart from it, like feeling like they're malfunctioning, like et cetera, et cetera. And like they were, it was basically like the same vegan arguments you hear of, like they're doing it for the environment or, they feel better eating plants and like all of this stuff. And it's like, I can see like the deterioration in your face still. Like I can see it. Like,
Uh-huh.
you know,
Been there.
yeah. So that's the kind of arguments that unintentionally happen.
Uh-huh. So yeah, it found you. You didn't
Yeah,
find.
right.
Do you have guilty pleasure of being on like some ex-vegan, anti-vegan pages or you
Yes.
don't? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you say that it's like some like trauma recovery for your like because you said that you felt guilty for yourself for doing that. Do you still feel like there is an element of why did I do this to myself?
I mean, yes, I guess. It's I don't know. Sometimes I'm just like I like the drama that happens. I don't know. It's like entertainment for me now. And
Niche entertainment, yeah.
it's like I guess it makes me feel better about myself, but I don't think that's like really the reason I'm doing it. I don't know. I just find myself like watching these things.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Same, but yes, sometimes it's very cool. Like, oh, wow. Ooh, yeah, it's definitely some element of thrill about it, but
Yeah.
guilty pleasures.
Yes.
Would you switch to eating lab-grown meat if or when it becomes available?
I don't want to.
No?
No, it doesn't sound appealing to me. It just seems wrong. Like I actually like if I had the ability to, like I would consider hunting myself or like if I had to go out and kill a chicken, like I would do that myself, like
Mhm.
now. There was a point where I would have been like, no, I'm never gonna do that, but like I'm in full acceptance of like, no, I'd rather get it from an animal.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I read papers on that. And they functionalize meat, that lab-grown meat,
Hmm.
based on their insights. So they will have most up-to-date set of nutrients in them, basically. It's not like they naturally accrue certain nutrients in their tissues. So
Hmm.
it's a very interesting lab project for sure. But I share your standpoint on that too. And actually, you said that you would actually go slaughter an animal yourself. Do like is it like genuine statement you can imagine doing that? It's you don't have any inhibitions.
Yeah. Yeah.
You were never vegan.
No.
Okay, are there any lessons that you learned from being vegan?
Um, I mean, other than the health related ones, like I will say, like for me, it was something like I definitely it motivated me to like take responsibility for myself and like cook. Cause like, I mean, I was young. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like something I really did before going vegan. It was something that was like, okay, you're gonna do this. You have to like cook yourself,
Mm-hmm.
So that was something for me. And then just really like staying with something that you believe in. That was something like important for me, through those years.
I see. Oh, okay, good, good, good. Yes, if you want to do something well, do it yourself. That's
Yeah.
what you learn probably when you like segregate yourself from some caregivers and stuff. Then if you met a child or teenager who expresses their desire to go vegan, what would you tell them?
This is so hard. Because every kid and teen is different.
Mm-hmm.
I can think about it from like the perspective of like if I was a teenager, like I wouldn't hear anything that somebody else told me, you
Mm-hmm.
know. It'd be one of those things of like, you can try to just be brutally honest with them and just, kind of try to explain like, this is why we have to do this. Like physically your health needs it and like just try to be honest in that way with a teenager. With a kid, it's harder. Like that's where it's like you have to be so like empathic with, at least I'm thinking from like if it was me. when I
Mm-hmm.
was younger, of like just trying to just be like, okay, like I understand this is how you feel, and that's great that you feel that way, but like you also do need this for your health. And like, I think maybe that's when like try to like compromise of like, okay, if this is your kid, like maybe be like, okay, we won't have meat today, we'll have more veggies today, or like something like that. I don't know. It's so hard to say because every kid is gonna respond differently.
Mm-hmm. Or like, please set an alarm 2 years from now for this day
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
message me how you feel on the vegan
Hmm.
diet. And mysteriously leave with like grimace. Like, okay, veganism for you, never again or depends?
Never again.
You do you want to elaborate or do you think it's crystal clear?
I couldn't put myself through it again, you
Okay,
know.
okay. And the last question I have is the quite general question is just to spread values of different people. In your opinion, what could each human do to positively contribute to the world?
Mm. I mean, personally, I always feel like bettering the world kind of starts with yourself and like working on yourself, and that means also taking care of your physical health and mental health.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things like it really you have to take care of yourself to be able to even like impact the world at all. And I can also say like in addition to that, like for me, like I believe, like like I was saying, like buying stuff locally if you can. Like knowing where your food is coming from and like supporting like your local community and stuff is like something like I really believe in with that.
Mm-hmm. So contribution and actually, yeah, just acting within the scope of your influence. Some because I think
Yeah.
that people forget that we can influence so much around us, just through
Hmm.
small things. Yeah, that's beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for the interview, for your inputs, and I really
Yeah.
enjoyed talking to you.
You too.
Very,
Thank you.
very happy to have this story of ex-vegan recovery, and yeah, thank you for your time and
Thank
your
you.
energy and smiles. Yeah.